Sam, don't.
All right. Hey everyone, welcome to our career and alumni panel. Today we have a lot of special guests and I'll let them introduce themselves later, but we're really lucky to have them donate their time to this. Y'all aren't getting paid, sorry, but they're here to share their experiences on what it was like being a college student pursuing something tangentially related to data science, what they've done in their careers, and tips on how to go about pursuing a career in data science or using data science applied to another field. So we can go ahead and just start off with introductions. Um, Anitra, do you want to start? I'm just going across the street.
Sure. Well, nice to see everyone again. My name is Vinitra Swamy. I did my bachelor's and master's at Berkeley in computer science a while ago, and I was really involved with the new undergraduate data science major. I got involved with teaching staff. I was head TA of Data 8 for a while, and then my last summer, in summer 2018, I co-lectured the class with Fahad, who's to my bottom left. and this was in summer 2018. Afterwards, I joined Microsoft AI as an engineer working on AI interoperability. So the area that I work in is specifically taking interesting deep learning frameworks like PyTorch, TensorFlow, and various others, converting them to the standard called ONNX, which stands for the Open Neural Network Exchange, and being able to essentially serve models that you trained in PyTorch with a backend like TensorFlow or something like that. Other than that, I am also this summer lecturing a course at the University of Washington on Introduction to Machine Learning. This is quite similar to Data 100 material, so there's quite a bit of overlap in both areas, but we're just about to come up on our final exam next week. I'm currently located in Seattle, and I've known a lot of the faces on this panel for many years, so we had a lot of fun when I was back at Cal.
Anisha, Fahad, do you want to go next?
Cool. Hi, everyone. My name is Fahad Kamran. I'm currently a third year, whoa, time flies, PhD candidate at the University of Michigan. I graduated with a bachelor's from Cal in 2018 in computer science and stats. Yeah, very similar to Venitra. We had TA together a few times. I taught Data 8, and I also taught some other classes like CS 188, which is the AI class, and 621B, and was involved in 621A. But then the last summer, I co-lectured with Venitra, which was awesome. Yeah, and now I've been at Michigan for the last 2-ish years. Most of the projects I work on, or my general research is on causal inference, which is trying to learn from observational data sets, trying to get causal effects of things like treatments, which is specifically in healthcare. So I work a lot in the intersection of machine learning and AI in healthcare. Some other projects I work on sometimes are using wearable sensors that people use to detect or prevent possible harm that might come to someone in the future, specifically things like falling and losing someone's balance. So yeah, and then actually recently we've been working on trying to assist hospitals with the pandemic. So yeah, a lot of interesting stuff, and a lot of it very related to data science and things I learned in Data 8. So yeah.
Natalia.
Sweet. Hi, I'm Natalia again. I also was involved with Data 8 for a long time. I TA'd for 3 years, and then was also a summer lecturer the previous summer for Data 8. But I actually graduated in 2019 with a degree in molecular environmental biology. I didn't major or minor in data science. I just took a lot of classes, and that's my primary academic interest. And have had a chance to use data science and the tools I learned through data science and computer science classes in the area that I'm most interested in. So now I am at the Joint Global Change Research Institute, which is an institute of the Pacific Northwest National Laboratory, which is one of the United States Department of Energy national labs. It's a lot of words, but I live in DC. The institute is here because it is focused more on kind of the connections between human and earth systems. So we do a lot of integrated modeling of the economy, the energy system, agriculture and land use, the water system, all of that together, rather than doing some of the more like Earth system physical science modeling that a lot of the national labs do. And yeah, I've been enjoying it, and it's definitely something that I was much more prepared for, having come from a background of taking a lot of data science classes and data 8.
Thank you, Natalia. All right, Sam, do you mind doing your introduction?
Hey everyone, my name is Sam, and I went to Berkeley for my undergrad, and I did a 5th-year master's program. While I was at Berkeley, I helped teach Data 8 and Data 100 as a TA, and eventually as a summer instructor for both Data 8 and 100 some summers ago. Right now, I'm a PhD student at UC San Diego. I work with Professor Philip Guo, and we study how people learn and do data science. So we study like data science instructors and how they do their thing. One lab mate of mine is studying like data science live streaming. I don't know if you've seen like the latest trend on TikTok, but people are making like data science tips and tricks on TikTok. So one of my lab mates is studying that, just to give you a flavor of what we're looking at. And so yeah, it's fun. I enjoy it, and I'm looking forward to talking more about life at Berkeley and beyond.
All right, and then finally, Chen, can you give an introduction to the students?
Yeah, hi, I'm Chen Zhen. I'm actually not from Berkeley, although I had a Berkeley offer. I went to Stanford many years ago. So hi, bears. I came to US actually to pursue my PhD degree in physics many years ago. And my undergrad was actually in math and physics together. And I picked the physics as the outcome of that. So if you're interested in that decision making, happy to share. And then at Stanford, my PhD study was mostly around astrophysics, and then really leveraging kind of the great data we collected through different kinds of global scale survey about supernova to calibrate how fast they recede, so that we can measure the expansion of the universe, so that we can tell the future of Cosmo, what that will look like. And at the time when I was doing the research, it was actually a decade ago, it was a hot topic and we didn't know. And from the data plots, it looks like we were exactly at the point of telling the future. So that was an exciting opportunity, so I took it. And then during the grad study, because we have to do a lot of data analysis and pattern recognition, so that we can develop a physics theory about what's going on. So I got sort of introduced to this discipline. And back then, again, decade ago, there's no concept of data science. It's just like data analysis or pattern recognition of information processing in general. But that was really fun, and I also got introduced somewhat to the fundamental mathematics later on related to machine learning. So from that, I actually left academia, joined Google as a business system integrator analyst. It's a loaded word, but what it meant, it was just a mixture of data science, business analysis, program management, engineering, yada, yada. And I learned a lot of business context and data analytics tools and data warehousing engineering principles from that job. And meanwhile, I also learned how to become actually a product manager, because I try to be differentiated from the rest of the team. They're all developers, so I try to do something differently. And then since then, I've been a product manager for 10 years, more than 10 years. So a very different background from the rest of the panel. If you're interested in pursue that sort of a path, we can talk. And then so I actually worked in a range of a company, high-tech company, that involving using, I guess, machine learning to do recommendations, or to do fraud detection, or to do combat with online abuse. So the company I work for, like I mentioned, Google and Instagram, Facebook, Wish, and recently Netflix. So you can see, the characteristic of those companies is like they have a huge amount of data, huge amount of knowledge about their users' behavior, and how we mine those behavior into business model and use cases is what kind of like get specialized over years. And then recently, I'm a director of product innovations at Netflix, responsible for the recommendation systems we built in the company for years. As many of you know, probably in the beginning, like probably a decade ago, we were doing a lot of recommendation-related challenges. So that's where this whole team came from. And within the team, we're actually exploring quite a lot of interesting industry trends. I heard someone on the panel mention the causal inference. That's actually a recent direction we were looking into. We're also very big on reinforcement learning. We're looking into also, you know, kind of fairness and as a big topic in the industry. So these are the areas that I'm constantly thinking about. Happy to share.
Cool. Thank you everyone for the introduction. So we'll start off the questions by talking about your undergraduate experiences. So I guess the first question is, did you always know that you wanted to study, you know, data science or computer science or statistics, or did you come into college, you know, wanting to study, I don't know, business, bio, whatever else? Anyone can feel free to jump in.
Yeah, sure, I can go for that. No, actually, not at all. I took the pilot course of Data 8, and that definitely like set my trajectory. I took it because Professor Adhikari, like at our orientation, CalSO, which doesn't exist anymore, but at our orientation, like went up on stage and presented this class, and I was like, oh yeah, I think that that would be a useful thing to do. But before that, I had never considered kind of like a more, I mean, like I was comfortable with quantitative sciences, but it was not something that I thought I wanted to do primarily. And then I guess I didn't actually end up studying data science, but because I studied biology, but it was just like so exciting to have taken Data 8 and like immediately see how this could be connected to the stuff that I would be interested in. So I like made it a point to try to take something either like data or computer science or statistics related every semester from then on out. And I felt that that allowed me to like gain tools to pursue my main interest, even though it never swayed me fully into, I want to like major in statistics.
I can share, not at all as well. Initially, actually, I went into my college, my department was literature. And I was very interested in both the pure literature and pure science. So, you know, I couldn't make up my mind and I went into that department first. But then later on, we have actually program within my college offer to study fundamental sciences, which provide a range of sciences principles like math, physics, chemistry, biology. I'm like, that sounds cool. I don't have to make up my mind for a while. So I applied for it. And there was also a program about like, you can study literature, history, different foreign languages, and politics, social science, all in one major. I was like, okay, that sounds cool. Apply for that too. And the first one admitted me, the second one didn't. So I went to the first one. The reason I shared this piece, partially I think over time, over my years of professional life, I realized actually export. A lot of machine learning folks probably know about is a very great strategy, right? To learn what is the best performing model to avoid local maximum. And this actually also works for people for your career. So when we are young, when we're just a college student, I think this is a great time. You can explore a variety of things quickly and then see what works out, what doesn't work out. So I think I was fortunate to have that chance to explore and eventually come to the current trajectory, which I'm very satisfied.
I can also go, no, to keep up the trend. I did not come in expecting to do data science. I came in coming as a math major, and then also I wanted to do Spanish for God knows why. I never did it, never took a Spanish class. And my goal was to become an actuary because one time I Googled it and they made a lot of money. So then eventually I took computer science 61A because I'm too old to have taken Data 8 my freshman year. It didn't exist. So yeah, I took 61A. I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. Then I took a stat class and I was like, oh, this is pretty cool too. And then eventually I got involved in data science and I was like, ah, yeah, this is all the things I like put together. So it just happened. I just happened to go that way.
There's a related question we just got in the sort of Q&A, which is, do you all enjoy math? So I'm assuming Fahad, the answer is yes, but.
No, I majored in it, but I liked it. I still like it.
Somewhat different answer for me. I was partially majoring it. I think I enjoyed that. I good at it, but I didn't enjoy as much as other principles. So I knew it was not my destiny. So that's why I went to physics for a reason. And eventually I find out physics was not my destiny. Product management is. Now I'm very sure what I love. So that's why I was saying like explore is important in the early time of your career?
Cool.
Nice.
Yeah, go for it.
When I came to Berkeley, I was totally planning to sell my soul to corporate America and go into like some big tech company and just live happily the rest of my life. And yeah, all my dreams came crashing down when I got lunch with. I actually emailed like John De Niro one day, asked him to like meet with me to talk about teaching and ways to get involved with teaching. And then he told me to like he volunteered me to get involved in Data 8. And then yeah, here I am, looking at my washed up life now. Just kidding. So I would say no, I wasn't interested in data science, but I came to really enjoy it because I think like programming and like statistics is kind of a meta field. Like it's not, it's a field that applies to all sorts of other fields and other domains. And I think that's something I like about it because I like being able to talk with different people about what they do, and knowing some programming, knowing some statistics helps a lot with that.
Yeah, my take on it, I actually came from a computer science background. So I always knew I wanted to do computer science, but I never really knew what part of computer science interested me the most. And from that perspective, I do enjoy math a bit, but not enough to make it my major like Fahad with his 3 majors. But that being said, when I came to Berkeley, I knew I really wanted to try research. I, like Sam, was considering selling myself out to corporate America, and I really enjoyed the tech industry in general. I was born and brought up in the Silicon Valley, so I was very familiar with what that kind of life would be like. And I got involved with the Berkeley Institute for Data Science completely randomly. I actually almost chose a different research lab, and the lab I ended up choosing was because the Berkeley Institute of Data Science had the clear windows that you can kind of write on in the conference rooms and the really nice coffee machine. And it was the best decision I ever made as a freshman. So the reason I like data science is because I think it enables me to use computer science to solve and talk about the world in different ways, kind of like what Sam was saying, but I'm interested in a large variety of fields, from English and natural language processing to the astrophysics that Jen was mentioning, and a lot of different areas. And I think data science is kind of your toolkit to use computer science to understand the rest of the world. And that's why I like it.
Cool. Another question we have for you all. What career advice would you give to your undergraduate self? And so, yeah. And feel free to talk about, things you did in undergrad, maybe outside of the classroom that sort of helped, in your career, but just more generally, like what would you tell your undergrad self?
I don't think, you guys are the instructors, so I don't think you guys are gonna like this one, but I'd actually tell myself to calm down a little bit on the classes and focus more on finding other things that interest me outside of classes. I did, like Benitra, Sam, I did research. I enjoyed it. I wish I would have done a little bit more, on a little bit more, and find out what I like outside of just classes, because that sort of informs what you do later on as well.
Yeah, I think kind of in my later years at Cal, one of the things that I would have told my freshman self was like, get involved in research earlier, and just like try a little harder. Like, don't be afraid to, send out a bunch of emails to professors and maybe get, responses. And I still think that that's true. I think that at the time, like getting a little bit more a variety of research experiences would have been good. But now actually coming out of college, I'm also kind of wishing that I had spent time getting kind of work experience outside of academia as well, because I feel like I would have a better understanding of the kinds of careers that are available to me if I had kind of diversified a little bit. That being said, having a background in research really opens doors to a lot of different types of positions, and like the practical skills. So yeah, I don't think it was a lot that kind of focused on academic positions, but it's kind of pieces of advice I would have given to.
Yeah, I would say like I would have told myself, understand myself better. And over years, I realized this is a really important aspect of managing your own life, your career, and your relationship and everything. And when we were young, no one told us that is important. Or maybe there's some kind of literature out there, but not emphasized enough. It's more of the emphasis on, classwork, as someone mentioned, or maybe extracurricular, or skill set, or, getting more relationship, more networking. I feel those are kind of tools. They're toolbox. They're important, but they're not fundamentally important. Understanding yourself better, understand what you want, what you're good at, what you enjoy, what you hate, what you want to become, the earlier, the better. The more beneficial you will experience from it. And as you can see from my own experience, I took a lot of turns to find that. It took a while. It was eventually become a fruitful experience, but it was also pretty painful. And I wish like very early on, I focused a lot on understanding who I am. Because actually, we each individual, you can think about we are a product. If I apply a little bit product mindset here, if I may, is if you don't understand the purpose, you don't understand why and the goal, it's hard to optimize, right? It's like a machine learning algorithm without objective. How do you do it? You can't. You need to figure out the objective first. So and nowadays, like whenever I face any problem, whether it's in life, in career, in family, in social circumstances, I always ask why. Right? And if you don't have that, you're not gonna possible to find the optimal solution. So I think you're very young and at this great stage, try a lot of time, understand yourself. And there's many tools to help you how to understand yourself. Like you can talk to your friends, sometimes your party view is helpful. You can talk to your family because they, witness your growth trajectory. Sometimes it's also helpful to talk to a lot of strangers who have first impression of you. That may give you data points that you may miss from your friends and family, like inner circles. And then also try to look for other role models. This kind of career panel is helpful, or sometimes you just watch videos of celebrities or famous people or scholars interview. Just observe what kinds of different life trajectory can be out there. And from this vast sample, try to figure out what is my matching point and what is the unique part I am. So that you can leverage that later on in your life.
Does anybody else have anything to add about that career point for undergrads?
I can go. I'll just get like practical stuff. I think my biggest tip to my former self would be office hours are a way to go in order to talk to professors because they never answer their email. If you want to get involved in research, the best way to do that is to stalk professors and then look at their list of graduate students and then email the graduate students and not the professor directly, because graduate students are not only have more free time, but they're also in need of constant validation, like me. And so if you like email them directly, they'll be like, oh my gosh, like someone loves me, finally, So it's just like a subliminal way to say like, feel free to slide into my DMs, happy to chat. Those are my tips.
I'll jump in right here, actually. So for those of you who are studying Data 8 or Data 100 at Berkeley, we actually have programs for mentoring, where grad students mentor undergrads in terms of research projects. And you'll see these emails sent out from the stats department, I believe from EECS also. So keep your eyes peeled for this fall if you do want to get involved in some kind of research to do as Sam has said.
I saw the question in the chat, and I think it's a good one. Do you mind if I just go for it? Someone said, how do you get the emails of the GSIs and the professors and the graduate students? Most grad students nowadays probably have some sort of website where they can find it. So it might not be on like the specific website of a professor, but you should, if you just look up the person, yeah, it involves a little bit of internet stalking sometimes. So Serge just found mine just by Googling my name and my email's there. So a lot of people have websites like that. That's one way to go. You can usually find it if you see internet stalk a little bit. Graduate students are told to publicize themselves a lot, so just some Googling helps.
And I just want to jump in as well. If you're wondering like who the grad students of a professor are, most professors have a lab webpage that lists all of their current and past, the grad students who are doing their degree in that lab. Sorry.
So there's another question that popped up regarding how do you actually get involved in data science if you only realize you enjoyed it late in the game, and if you're coming from a social science background? Does anybody have any tips or comments on that?
Yeah, sort of. So I don't have a direct career trajectory because I don't know these people's trajectories that well. But at the institute that I work at, like I said, it's a climate research institute. It's related to the Department of Energy, and most of the people in that position, a lot of the senior scientists are people who with like economics backgrounds or public policy backgrounds or all kinds of other backgrounds, and all of them end up doing this like quantitative research through kind of hands-on experience. So and through the kind of like labs that they've worked in and research that they've done. So if possible, to take as much like quantitative stuff right now as you can to get those baseline skills. That's great. But then as you go forward, if you just look for those positions that kind of combine your social interests with your quantitative interests and play up the fact that you have any quantitative background at all, which is going to be, differential between different like people with different social science backgrounds, you can definitely like make your way there. It's not at all like a thing that you have to have a certain background to get into.
I'll second this, and I'll also say one more thing. I think at a lot of research institutes, and maybe Fahad and Sam, who are in PhD programs, probably will have some more to say about this, but in a lot of these research institutes, there are these fellowship positions that you can get sometimes right out of being a bachelor's student or a master's student or a PhD student, and a lot of them are quite quantitative. They might not necessarily have to be at a data science institute, but if you look at most research institutes, there are always these fellowship positions. They're usually 1 year, and they're really great for reorienting your career in perhaps a certain way through a lot of like a very technical year of research in that experience. So those are definitely some interesting programs to look into.
I see another question in chat, so I'll just try to answer both real quick. I would say in terms of going from a non like data science field into data science, one good way I've seen people handle this is they pick a problem in the domain of interest that they're really interested in working on. So if it's in social science, maybe you're really interested in like increasing voter turnout, right? Or predicting like who's going to vote. And if that's your sort of thing, then you might want to look into whether like, okay, within this problem, are data science skills useful or valued by the people who are actually doing this research? And if you have a match there, then you have something going. Sometimes you might have to do a little bit of searching if you're really like tied to this. I want to use like, I don't know, I want to use like neural networks for something, then you have to like do a little bit more searching to find the useful problem that that could apply to. But generally speaking, I've seen people like do well by looking for a problem that highly motivates them, and then having the data science kind of follow from there. Like, okay, I want to work on this problem. In terms of technical skills, programming is a good skill. Learning to use Excel well is an underrated skill, in my opinion. I would say beyond that, it depends a lot on the type of research you want to do. It's a little bit hard. If you give me like a specific domain, I can maybe answer a little bit better. But generally speaking, what you want to do is figure out like what the people in your domain of interest are using. So whether they're using Python or R or MATLAB even, or like neural networks or like, basic machine learning libraries. You want to figure out what they're using and then try to like tailor your skills to match what they want.
To add on to a couple of things Sam said. First, I think interdisciplinary research is at like an all-time high nowadays because everyone's like, oh, computing can help with this and that. So, any subfield, like Sam was saying, that you want to get into, think about what could it be interested in. I can guarantee you someone very close in your vicinity is probably working on or needs computation in a subfield that you're interested in. So it's always just good to look out there. Another thing to add on about technical skills for research, I'll say that currently in my PhD program, I've used a total of 1 programming language. So, programming, and it's Python. So congrats, about the same level as many of you. And I think I like randomly use other languages. Languages aren't the end all be all. I'd say there's another thing. I think Excel, Sam's right, is another big one. Eventually, you have to learn to like to read to get into to do a lot of research, which kind of sucks. I never liked reading, but I think eventually just getting used to reading helps a lot with getting into research as well. So it's not really a technical skill, but reading technical research papers is very different than reading a novel. So just thinking about how you want to start doing that's pretty good.
I will add on one more kind of related to what you said. I think it's very important to learn the skill to learn, because in research there's a lot of new domains and information and principles that even you prepare the best before you enter, you're going to be surprised. And hence, actually this is a learnability is a skill set. People differ in the way they learn. And if you figure out early on how you learn the best, it will be very handy when you are in the research program.
If nobody else has anything to say on that, I think there are two more questions that just popped up. They seem quite interesting. And this one might hit close to home for those of you who are in grad school. It's, have you ever experienced imposter syndrome in the industry? And if so, did you cope or overcome it? So maybe we could talk about industry and academia. But I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about this.
I can say something since I've been in the industry probably the longest. This is a very common thing. Everyone experiences it, to be honest. I have too. And then whenever I feel I experience it, it's actually, I train myself to turn that negative energy into something positive. Basically, I realize there's a gap. Whatever the gap is real or not, I realize at that moment there's a gap. So it's not about having this and how I overcome it. It's more about having that. Can that be a trigger for me to find out what that gap is? If the gap, for example, I landed at Netflix like a year ago, and I realized that among my team, most of the people are PhD, and they're very, very in depth in terms of machine learning modeling. Although I have similar background, but I was working on machine learning more towards from the product management perspective a lot more, less so from the modeling perspective. So initially I have imposter syndrome, like why did they offer the position to me? A lot of self-doubt. But then quickly, like I realized this is the gap. So what do? Learn more, right? Literally just 2 words, learn more about the gap. So I actually end up reading tons of paper, going to a lot of conferences, basically pick up my research skills I trained myself decades ago, and then re-get into the game, which is super painful. Reading research paper is sometimes not that fun, but hey, if this is what the job requires, you do it. So I think since then, this kind of an imposter syndrome sometimes still appear here and there in certain circumstances, but I learned to master it over time. So I think that that's kind of like my angle, face it and then turn that into something positive.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I literally constantly have no idea what I'm doing. And I feel like the most important thing there is if someone like tells me to do something or like uses a term that I don't know or something like that, to get over the discomfort of feeling like I will reveal that I'm a imposter, and instead like ask. And people want me to be able to do the things that they want me to do, so they will tell me. And I have learned a lot that way by like recognizing when I want to just like let something fly past me because I don't know what's going on, but instead have like made the choice to ask what it means.
Yeah, that's great. That's super helpful. Does anybody else have any experience they'd like to share? Fahad, I said stuff, you had muted yourself.
Yeah, I can add in. So the question is, have you ever experienced imposter syndrome? So it sounds like Chen is learning to master it. Not even close at me right now. I'm dealing with it all the time, trying to master it. But just to give you the full and honest perspective, I don't really know how to deal with it yet. And I think I actually enjoyed listening to Chen and how she dealt with it. I think that was really useful. But yeah, in grad school, well, I've only been in grad school. I've barely done anything in industry, but feel it all the time. There's a lot of pressure in grad school and a lot of people doing really awesome things, which always makes you feel, feel like you don't belong there in grad school. One of the things I realized is that everyone felt it, which was not really reassuring. It was sort of reassuring, but also it was kind of just sad as well that everyone is feeling that way. So I think one of the things that I've learned in grad school and I've started to focus on is just trying to take care and normalizing the idea of taking care of your mental health and your wellness, because imposter syndrome can really derail you there. So I'm definitely not at the point where I know how to deal with the imposter syndrome, but I've figured out that it's important to take care of yourself. So I think it's an important thing to consider after college as well, or in college as well, too.
And I just have a small footnote, I guess, about imposter syndrome in industry. It definitely still exists there as well. I think I'm in a much more intro level than Chen, who's been around in the data science field for a much longer time. I've been here about 2 years now, which is crazy to think about. But I think being able to realize that if you don't jump in and start, saying that, I can do it personally, and volunteering yourself for certain tasks or certain things that you're interested in that are a little bit out of your comfort zone and you don't want to take on because you don't know all the aspects of all the questions that could possibly be asked surrounding it. Just being unafraid to take a step in the right direction, just having that volunteering and can-do-it spirit really, really helps. I think people value that as a quality of being a really great employee, but someone who's willing to give it a shot, at least independently for a little bit, and then seeing where it goes. You don't have to be 100% certain that this is the right way to go, but you could give it a try. And that idea of giving it a try is my answer so far to the imposter question.
There was a first question that happened right before the imposter one that I wanted to take on also. The first question is, how do you feel about data science job in technical companies versus non-technical? The best piece of advice I got on that is I know the difference between what we call like a line position versus a staff position. So the difference is like a line position in an organization is like core to the organization's survival, whereas a staff position is not. So like at a bank, for example, the tellers that you see at the front desk are actually just staff positions. The real like money makers for the bank are like the people who give out loans, because that's how the bank makes money. And so to apply towards data science, I would say it would be, my first order bit would be to say like, okay, it's good to get a job where data science is not just like an addition to what the company is already doing, but has some sort of like core value add to what the company wants to do. In terms of imposter syndrome, I'll just share a really quick story. I had a professor come into our lab to give a talk, and people were asking him all sorts of really hard questions after his talk. And the most interesting thing about it was he answered most of his questions with, I don't know. So if someone asked me for something really hard and like really good, like a really great question, and he would stare at them and be like, oh, I actually don't know. And then everyone looked at him with like such deep respect, because here was a guy who you would think he knew what he was doing, but then he clearly knew like the limits of his own knowledge and the limits of what he was able to answer, and he wouldn't try to overstep what he was comfortable like answering confidently. And so it just really opened my eyes, and after that, I like realized the power of saying I don't know, and it helped me overcome imposter syndrome. Well, not overcome it, but like, start the process.
I think the other question that recently came in is a really great one. How do you combat or prevent burnout to maintain sort of your high performance in school and beyond in the rapid field of data science?
Do things that aren't just data science, like have hobbies. I'm serious. Like, I don't know. I don't want to like characterize the fields, but I did feel a lot of times when I was taking classes that a lot of people in these in data science classes were very singularly focused on it. And I really benefited from having like completely unrelated interests and activities that, just kept me sane, but also sometimes like taught me skills that were complementary. So yeah, have other interests also. It might seem counterintuitive to like do more, but it'll help like balance your life a lot.
I would like to say this particular question actually have several layers to answer. First of all, is like whether you recognize yourself has a limit. And if you do, then that can be your modulator to watch out and deal with, right? It's mostly dangerous if you don't have that kind of trigger or modulator. then when it happens, it could be very dire in consequence. Secondly, there's also a question like, do you really need to get to that kind of stage? Is it really like we just teach you some efficiency like tips so that you can handle more than what you can handle now? I think that question is really depends. A lot of successful stories that probably you can learn online or read will tell you most of impactful things happen to one person's career or life. It's actually very small, right? Like, for example, just take a life as an example. Someone choosing their spouse wisely, that one event may determine the rest of their life's happiness. A little bit extreme, but for career, sometimes the same too. And then even for a product, a project, a job, often maybe you're doing 100 things, but really what matters might be only a couple. So the capability of you telling which couple things really matter actually solve this problem from the root cause. Because if you know where you focus your energy on, then you wouldn't need to run around and try to do all the 100 things and risk burning out. So I think that second aspect is what a lot of us to think about. And it's hard, by the way. This is a very, very hard thing. It's not like I'm saying, pointing this out doesn't mean I myself can do it well. It's just like I recognize there's such a need or angle. And then the third part about this burnout is really recognize, this is not just inflicted on yourself, but also can inflict on people you work with or people in your life or people or other things you can impact. And that is somewhat touching upon leadership, which I think is a great quality for anyone in any field, if you want to be successful. So many times, maybe we manage our time very well. We have the good tips, right? We know how to do the 100 things. Let's say you didn't do the prioritization, you just did them all. But what that impact manifests into might be thousands of things for others to do. So that you will maybe the contributor to this bigger problem for everyone. So I think that self-awareness of how I exert my impact to the surroundings is really important. Because if you do realize that, you will be much more conscious about what things you choose to do and what things you choose other people to do. And you may also have, remember the first point of trigger, you can monitor your surroundings and help them recognize sometimes this can be dangerous. A lot of time, these things without monitoring can result into depression or even worse outcome.
Yeah, thank you. That was so helpful, Chen. So we have about 4 minutes left. So I think we should jump into a question relating to what happens after you're done undergrad. So for those of you who went into industry or to do your master's or your PhD afterwards, what made you take that decision to join industry or academia, or at least continue your education?
I would say the most helpful metaphor for me for like what doing a PhD is like, if that's something you're considering, is doing a PhD is very much more like starting your own company than it is like doing more school. Because during a PhD, you have to come up with a problem that no one has solved sufficiently well. You have to try to solve it, and then you have to like market your solution. And if you're successful, instead of getting lots of money, you get lots of citations. So if that's something you're into, then like that's how I would kind of like answer that question, which is if you really value freedom and you want to be able to do your own thing and like you have some ideas of problems you want to work on, then a PhD is great. If you want to make money and you have lots of ideas, then doing a company is good. If you're not so certain, you like need that, like you need a lot of personal freedom and flexibility, and you want to be maybe have a more stable lifestyle, then doing an industry job is great too.
One minor caveat, I think that there are a lot of interesting industry jobs in the research and AI space. Some of them, just by entry qualifications, require higher degrees. So I definitely don't think doing a higher degree to go to industry is a bad idea. I'm not saying that it's necessary. There are some intro-level data science and data analyst roles, and of course, software engineering and AI roles that are just out of a bachelor's degree. But to add on to what Sam was saying, I'd say if you're still interested in that, maybe the first or the second option, there is the area of industry research, and you get lots of resources and lots of really exciting people around it too. So consider industry research as well.
I'll offer a little bit different dimension because I personally had to make that decision when I left the academic field. I wouldn't characterize it just based on freedom or money, because both can also be achieved on both sides, to be honest. We don't have enough time to go through the example. I'll leave that aside. I think most important, I think, is fundamentally different between academia and industry is industry focus a lot more on short-term or medium-term impact. Because as a company's nature, if you focus on too long-term, you can't commercialize it. You can't make money out of it. That's not viable. There's rarely investors will invest in you. But research, a lot of time, you actually look at much longer term impact, and even things that may not have realistic commercializing kind of opportunity in the 10 years or 100 years horizon. So I think that way, then you can sort of align your curiosity to which dimension you care more about. Do you want to see the impact manifest in your lifetime? And do you want to see build the future for the next generation, next generation? That actually really brilliant. I think both are important, but depends on your personality and your life goals. You may choose different things.
So say one more thing about this specific question. So if I had to give one advice to someone about how they should choose this, the most important thing is to try both. You're never going to figure this out if you don't do an internship in industry and do some research in undergrad. So like that's how I decided. I'm sure that's how many other people on this panel decided eventually as well, what they wanted to do. You're never going to be able to make that decision. Even if you think right now research is not something you want to do, you got to try it. It's very different than when you get your hands dirty in it. So yeah, that's how I made the decision. I did both and I was like, oh, research is kind of cool. And then I went to PhD.
So we're at the hour. I think we can start wrapping up, but before we close out, do any of the panelists have any last comments they'd like to make?
Would like to say one thing. Actually, I'm very enthusiastic about talking about this type of thing and coming to this type of forums. That's why Tao introduced me to this panel. I felt like I'm a little like an imposter here. Actually, not in the data science main domain, didn't study it either. But the partially why motivates me to be here, because I realize how important it is to influence people at a very early age. And then one thing, if I can somewhat convey to you, I do think all the stuff I said, if I summarize it together, is a mindset. Like mindset is not a skill set. It's not a knowledge. It's not something you just learn from a book. You actually have to go through your own life experience it, think about it, summarize it. It's a methodology. And then once you develop a certain system that works for you, that system can apply to all sorts of use cases, whether it's life problems or career problems or anything. And so I truly believe the power of that, and I love to talk to all of you more if you're interested. And I do have a nonprofit organization called Product Pub. If you go to productpub.org, you can find more information about our events and seminars and workshops. And we talk a lot about this type of mindset, like product mindset, global mindset, growth mindset, yada, yada.
I think one last thing that I would like to say, there's a lot of different paths you can take to data science. There's a lot of different roles you can have, a lot of different backgrounds you can come from. And I think Data 8 and Data 100 do a great job. And also, hopefully there's some students from UW, a lot of the courses there, they do a great job at motivating the reason of why data science could be interesting and applied to all of these different kinds of data sets and different kind of problems. So I just urge you not to lose that passion for applying computer science or data science to whichever field that makes you the happiest. Maybe that is meta. Maybe you want to do data science on data science or data science on data science education like Sam does. But I would just urge you to not lose that passion. And if you ever feel yourself losing that, go check in and do a data science project of your own. Do a little exploration on a data set that you find interesting and just check in with yourself for about an hour of why you're here and why you're doing it.
One thing I'd add, I think both those points are super good. One thing I'd add is, this is more of a practical thing. You'd be surprised how much you've learned in this past summer. Is super important down the line. Even in I'm going to my third year of my PhD, and every day I talk about bootstrapping. So like the things that you're learning in these classes are working you towards something useful. So, you know, it might seem like, oh, it's data 8, or I guess I'm talking more to data 8, but I'm sure data 100 does a lot of the similar things. But if you're worried about you're too far behind or you're not going to be able to make it into blah, 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 you're already made a great step by being in this course and taking it. And it's going to take you a farther way than you think it would.
If there are no other closing remarks, I think we can end this panel here. So thank you all for coming to join us today. I learned a lot myself, and I'm sure all of our students have the same feelings. So thank you for your time. It was really great hearing about all of your work. But we're going to go ahead and stop the recording.